Are Tottenham Hotspurs serious title contenders? And I know there might be a bit of apprehension to discuss this topic because of the fact that, it is Spurs. They haven't won a trophy since 2008. It's only been 7 games into the season. And most importantly, we've been there before under Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, where we've been discussing about the fact that Spurs have had a fantastic start of the season, only for them to fall away from January onwards. But for me, I think this time it feels a bit different, with this set of players, with Pochettino at the helm. It feels different, and I'm going to talk about why I think this time it might feel different, and also how credible is Spurs' title charge against Manchester City, and how well do I think they're going to do. And credit to Spurs for getting themselves in this position where they're second in the league at the moment, 1 point behind Manchester City after their loss against Wolves, because they've done this with extremely difficult fixtures. They played Man United at home, Arsenal away, and Liverpool at home, and to get 7 out of 9 points against 3 sides who are typically in the big 6 is incredibly well done to Spurs and the side who really were the underdogs going into most of those fixtures. Yes, you could argue about the Romero decision in the Man United game. How did Man United not get a penalty? However, the fact is that they've got the points on the board, the league doesn't lie, they're second, and for the second half of that game they dominated. And against Arsenal in the North London derby, in what is typically an emotionally charged game, they actually kept really calm heads. The fact that James Maddison lost the box to Gabriel Jesus on the edge of the box and, carried on playing as well as he did for the rest of the game, and they never let their heads drop at any point in that match. I think credit to them. And the fact that against Liverpool, who are on a 17-game unbeaten run at that point, 11 from the end of last season and 6 going into this season, regardless of the VAR and the controversies, they got the points on the board. And again, the league table doesn't lie. So they played some really tough teams, but credit to them, especially because with the next 3 coming up on paper, Luton away, Fulham at home, and Crystal Palace away, they get another 9 points. Spurs can have 26 points from the opening 10 games of the season, which is a remarkable start, better than they've had under Mourinho and Conte, and could really propel them and give them momentum going forward in the season. And they've done all this without Harry Kane, who went to Bayern Munich in the summer. They lost their leader, their talisman, their main goal scorer. However, they've scored 17 goals in 7 games and haven't looked like they've struggled without him at all. They've got the same amount of goals as Manchester City. They've got 1 less than Aston Villa and Newcastle, and they're 2 behind Brighton, who are the top goal scorers in this league. And it's quite a simple but masterful stroke by Pochettino, just to move Heung-min Son, the main man now, from the left and into the middle. And he struggled against Sheffield United, yes, admittedly, but so far in the Premier League he's got 6 goals. That's a really impressive tally. And you've also got to give credit to James Maddison, who's come in from Leicester and just hit the ground running immediately. 2 goals and 4 assists. And also the likes of Kulusevski, you've still got Richarlison there, who will improve at some point. He will score more than the 1 goal he did last season. He's already got 1 goal, so you'd expect him to get a few more this year. Brennan Johnson coming in has looked really exciting. And they've also got goals from defenders, from Romero and Pedro Porro so far. You wouldn't be surprised if Udogie at some point with one of his runs into the box gets a goal, or Mickey van der Ven from corners, who look really impressive. So credit to them, because 17 points from 7 games without Harry Kane as well, and that's another reason why they look so impressive. And actually another thing which I think goes in Spurs' favour is getting knocked out of the League Cup early on against Fulham. And I know you might be screaming at me, how is getting knocked out of the Carib Cup against Fulham a positive for a side who, like I said in the intro, haven't won a trophy since 2008? Well, because it clears the schedule completely, and it means the Spurs only have Premier League fixtures up until January when the FA Cup hits. Because remember, Spurs aren't in any European competition at all this season, and there are 8 other teams in the Premier League who are in European competition, whether that be the Champions League, the Europa League, or the Conference League, which means that Spurs only have that one competition to focus on and pull all their resources into, which is a positive because of the fact that Spurs have such a thin squad. If Heung-min Son gets injured, if Kulusevski gets injured, if James Maddison gets injured, if one of the centre-backs gets injured, Spurs are in real trouble because they really, really lack squad depth. And squad depth is going to be a massive part to play, because for the likes of Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal, they all have squad depth because of the fact they're used to playing European football. Not necessarily Arsenal, but they've gained it and they've done well in the transfer window. So for the Spurs side, they're really going to struggle. I mean, if you think about the injuries that they already have, Perisic, Sessegnon, Johnson, Lo Celso, Bentancur, Bryan Hill, if they get an injury to one of their main starters, then that's going to cause Spurs a lot of trouble. So I think getting knocked out of the Carib Cup is a good thing for Spurs this season, but long term they do have to make a fight of it in the Cups. And this might be a bit of a weird point, but I think under Ange Postecoglou, this Spurs side, winning isn't everything. Because under Mourinho and Conte, the style of football was so boring, it was so turgid, that the means didn't justify the ends if Spurs dropped points. But under Ange, with this free-flowing, attacking football that Spurs are showing, which is really attractive to watch as a neutral, I believe that even if Spurs were to lose a game, the fans would turn around and go, do you know what? We know there's going to be games when we might have a tough day in front of goal, and we might concede a goal because our defence isn't the strongest and we commit so many men forward. But that's a risk you're going to pay, because you expect the fact that Spurs are going to play attractive football, score lots of goals, and when it does happen on the odd occasion where that doesn't quite work out, you accept it, because for 99% of the time you're entertained, which wasn't the case under Mourinho and Conte. And I also think that's going to give Ange more time at the helm, because of the fact they're playing attractive football, to go, when there's a bad game or result, it happens, it's football, which is a completely different mentality shift to what there was under Mourinho and Conte, because it felt like those managers were really going to be at the club for 2, maybe 3 seasons most, so they had to get wins and they had to win trophies. But I think under this Spurs side now, I don't feel like that's the case. There's no pressure on them whatsoever. So even though I'm talking about them as being, in the title race and what can they do, they are still the underdogs, because they don't have a world-class renowned manager, even though Ange I think is a fantastic manager and done a fantastic job so far. No one expects them to do anything, so there's no pressure on them. They can go out, they can play their attacking, free-flowing football with no pressure, because if they lose, everyone just goes, oh, it's Spurs, and they just kind of write it off. But to be fair, under Mourinho and Conte, they wouldn't. So yes, for me, I do feel like this Spurs side is different to the ones under Mourinho and Conte. It feels more like the one that was under Pochettino, which was attractive, young side, still has loads of room to improve. If you look at the entire back five, if you include the goalkeeper, all super young, so much room to improve. Basuma and Sarr in midfield, Madison, Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson, Charlison. The only one who's really on the older side in that starting 11 is Heung-min Son. But you replace Harry Kane, so you could probably replace Heung-min Son pretty well as well. So I think there's a lot to get excited about with the Spurs side. Do I think that they're title contenders? I think contenders, yes, because of the fact that, like Arsenal last season, without any European football, I think they could go on a run. I've mentioned the next 3 fixtures being incredibly easy on paper, and they could go on a run and really show people that we're here to stay. But do I see them long-term challenging Man City for the league? I don't think so. I think at some point they will drop points, or they will lose a game, as they already have dropped points, but they've got a few draws, so they've managed to come out of it in a positive light. I think Manchester City away, Liverpool away, they've already done it against Arsenal away in the North London derby, which is normally an emotionally charged fixture, but they managed to keep really calm heads. So I'm really excited to see what the Spurs side can do. I think they are, along with Manchester City, Liverpool and Arsenal at this moment in time, favourites to get top 4 ahead of the likes of United, Chelsea, even Newcastle maybe. It's going to be really interesting to see if, eventually at some point, are they going to drop points against the lower sides who are going to have a low block against them? We saw them batter Sheffield United, but it's only in the last 10 minutes that they really overturned that 1-0 deficit and win the game 2-1 in the end. So I'm going to say Spurs are definitely going to get top 4 this season. And I think that they're not going to win the league, which I think is fair, and I think most people would agree. But I think they are going to run Manchester City close there, and they're going to be there or thereabouts for most of the season. But I think they're going to fall just short. Let me know what you guys think.